done starting up a chapter back in 2009 and have been with the fraternity ever since.
Excellent. So the floor is all yours.
All right. Vadim, do you want to have any additional introductions on what you do in the real world? And then I can...
Certainly. Sure. Yeah, Andrea cut me out of that part for a little bit, so I'll add a little bit more. So yeah, I'm an honorary brother from Towson University in '09, as Andrea mentioned. I work in an IT capacity for the last 30 years. The last 26 years of that has been in Wall Street environment, and for the last 13 at Bank of America. Nikolai?
Thank you. And in my day-to-day job, I am financial analyst for a bank in Buffalo. And both Vadim and I are volunteers for the fraternity, and we're here to help everyone answer questions that you have and talk through most of the finances that you might encounter, some of the finance-related questions in your chapter. So our agenda will be brief. We have about 10 slides. So what we're going to do is try to get as much feedback from all of you, see how your chapter is progressing so far, and then any questions you have or clarifications, well, the three of us will try to answer them. And if we don't have the answers, we'll definitely get back to Heritage Center and provide those answers to you. So as you can see, we're going to try to tackle the big items. Some of these were already covered in prior sessions that the fraternity has held, but we're going to try to hit dues, budgets, rosters, LOAs, and then audits. And the big one that we have is fundraising for the chapter, so tackling some of the options for virtual fundraising that you might have as a chapter.
All right, so starting with dues and fees. So the first section right here is per member, and the lower portion is on a per chapter basis. First two have actually been modified for this upcoming semester. Student member dues have dropped from original standard 60 to 54. Insurance went from 30 to 27. So these are the only two fees in that section that have been lowered. The pledge fees and the initiation fees are still the same. One of the items on a per chapter basis did remain the same. So it's technically didn't go down, it just did not go up as it was supposed to have. So the conventional savings plan was due to go up to $350 due to COVID-19 and other related issues that obviously we're all aware of. Convention savings plan has stayed at $250. Additional item here, surety bond is a once a year $30 per chapter fee. One of the things that from a good practice perspective on a fee side is that you want to make sure that you don't report pledges or initiates without collecting those fees first. So as you go to that point of reporting that content, it would be, from a process perspective, it would be good to make sure that you collect those fees first and then report that content later on. I know that as part of the process from last semester to this semester, there were certain ceremonies that were held back just so that the reporting process would remain, that these people who might have otherwise joined last year didn't in fact join other than on paper until this year. So just keep in mind that you need to make sure that you have all the reporting process done and your fees collected in order to have that properly reflected in chapter spot. Late fees are waived until December 1st, and then they will begin monthly. So for the time being, you have an opportunity to make sure that you can catch up on all the fees that are due up until, at this point, December 1st, without any additional fees being accrued. If your chapter needs to go through a payment plan, you have some contact information here as to who you need to reach out to in order to discuss the payment plans. You have Deanna and Melinda at the Heritage Center, and make sure that if you have any correspondence that happens to go out to these individuals that you include your RDs and regional managers of finance.
Are there any questions from anyone in the room yet? No? All right. Next, we're going to tackle budgets. So it's hard to see, some of you are not sharing, but are all of you are either incoming treasurers or are current treasurers for your chapter? I'm just trying to understand what's our audience here right now. My chat's not up, so I don't know if we're able to see the responses on the chat. So I'm assuming everyone's a treasurer. Okay, I'm seeing some thumbs up. Perfect. Okay, so with the budgets, you should have already submitted those with your full year plans that were due earlier this fall. And that included everything from your budgets to your planned rush events, pretty much your entire year plan submission to Heritage Center. And with that, budgets was one of the items. But the thing with the budgets is it has to be approved by the entire chapter and voted on. So from our point of view as regional managers of finance, what we're trying to do is confirm with the chapter secretary or the and the treasurer to make sure that we have documentation that the chapter as a whole has done a vote and approved the budget for the, usually it's the entire year. Some chapters do it by a semester, but definitely you want to have a full year with a partial year in for the following year, so that way you can see how much money you have or what you need to cover your expenses. So normally in the minutes, what you want to do is when the chapter votes, you always want to do a yay, nay, and no opinion one way or the other vote. So that way, at the end of the day, when you look at your minutes, you have your entire brotherhood. There's usually a section for membership, and your votes that you record in the minutes should total up to your total brotherhood numbers on those minutes. And you always want to make sure that the budget is presented to the entire chapter. Being it now we're in a virtual environment, it might be easier doing a PowerPoint slide via Zoom, or like in our chapter, we used to do it in just a big conference room with like a presentation board. And with that, you also want to make sure you send your budget to your regional manager of finance. So that would be roles like Vadim and mine, and then we have, I believe, 2 other regional managers of finance. So you just have to make sure you check in with your regional manager of finance to see if there's any items that might be missing. Live chapters tend to miss that $30 surety bond. It's $30 and it only happens once a year, but you still want to count that in your budget. Same thing with the convention savings plan. Usually some chapters leave that number off, so you want to make sure you include that in your budgets. So our role would be going in and verifying that nothing major was missed in the budgets. And usually, or not usually, you as a chapter have to save the minutes to prove that the budget was approved by the entire chapter, and then also save those minutes and the budget in your chapter spot. That chapter spot is pretty much the place where all of the historical documents are housed, or supposed to be. So if your chapter is not using chapter spot, please start utilizing it. That way you could go back in the chapter spot through prior years and see prior minutes approvals, prior budgets, any historical important documents that relate to your chapter. Any questions so far? No, okay. And
Sorry, I do have one. Can you hear me okay?
yes, go
Sorry,
ahead.
I tried the raised hand icon. I guess that didn't work as well. So I appreciate the talk. I should introduce myself. My name is Joshua Silberman. I'm the sectional director of Northern New Jersey. And I wanted to ask if there's anywhere, or if its location has been changed for the budget template, or even if we're still doing that. Like usually, not usually, the Heritage Center in the past has provided a template for chapters to kind of get them started so they're not starting from scratch.
I can take that one if you want.
Please.
So one of the appendices at the bottom of this presentation is that particular template. So there is one template that they do offer, and is going to look like the one that I have at the bottom. The one at the bottom does have some updates on the numbers. We will have a few additional links to audit and finance guide where that particular snapshot is not going to be updated, because these changes, as far as I know, are currently for this semester and not necessarily long-term. So the template that I have in this particular slide is updated for those two figures that I talked about in the previous slide. The standard template does not reflect that if you go through the finance guide.
So
but there is
it's
a template available, and we will also be emailing it out. So I know that when, from a budgetary perspective, as Nikolai was talking about, people have submitted as part of success plans, various budgets. People have had templates, over the course of their chapter's history, and I've seen a bunch of them as, at least for my region, I was doing reviews of those success plans. So I've seen a variety of different budget types. So one of the things that I would suggest is for people to review the budget templates they currently have. Some were really good, some were, substandard. So it'd be a good idea to have a starting point, a basic starting point, like the kind that you'll see in the appendices at the bottom. If you have, either need to start somewhere, or if you want to do a do-over. So obviously, if you're looking at outflows, like the kind of content on the right that you see in the budget information here, or inflows on this side too as well. The template is a very basic template. You can certainly expand that template and add additional rows and columns for a variety of these items that you just saw in the budget slide. But this is the generic content that we know about revenue and expenses that you have to deal with right off the bat. But you can get as detailed as you want to. Obviously, every event that you're planning will have a sub budget, if you will, if you want to break it out into individual line items there that might look like something like this. But this is your starting point right here.
I'll let any of you correct me if I'm wrong, but if you're under Pulse Point, I don't know if we're still doing that this semester, you have to submit a budget under this template, right? Like you don't have a choice anymore. Is that correct?
Sorry, I missed the first question. Under what point?
Pulse Point is the chapter, not disciplinary, but it's like the guidance if you're not meeting minimum standards.
It used to be show cause.
Show cause, thank you. Yeah, that's the proper term I've been looking for.
Okay, so if you have a show cause, then what's the question?
As I
Are they-
sorry, go ahead. You probably can explain it better than I can.
Andrew,
If
go
they're required to submit a budget because of that. I'm not
They
certain, to be honest with you.
Every chapter now requires a annual budget and then a 2-year budget as part of their the chapter program for the year that they have to submit. So as part of their yearly plan that they have to submit, there's I think 2 or 3 questions that says, do you have a yearly budget? And you say yes or no, and then normally you have to upload it. And then it goes a step further saying, do you have a 2-year budget to see if the chapter is planning for long-term contingencies and long-term expenses? So I think part of the chapter plan that is normally submitted in the fall, there are 2 to 3 questions that relate to the budgets. So every chapter is required to submit a budget. It's recommended that the regional management team looks at them first before you actually upload them. So you don't have to be on the correction on the correction action plan for the chapter. Every chapter is now required a yearly budget, and then it's recommended to do a 2-year budget. That's a good question, Josh. So with the budgets, they're definitely going to look very different this year, especially with live chapters going remote. So some of the inflows and outflows will definitely vary, but these are generic ones that most of chapters income either comes from chapter dues, where the chapter charges a little higher dues than what is due to Heritage Center. So that way you can create some operational income for your chapter. Chapters have previously also done fundraising events at their schools, be it on campus or off campus. So that's usually a source of income. We will go over a couple options at the end of this for the different fundraising activities you could still do as a being in a remote situation. There's a couple alternatives you could do digitally. The outflows wise, I just want to point out insurance. So live chapters, normally the officer transition happens over the summer. So a lot of times the insurance fee portion gets communicated or not communicated as great as it should be. So just to reiterate, the insurance fee is based on your March spring membership, and that is then charged to that membership. So it's not what the fall membership that you might have if you're coming in as a new treasurer. It's based on your spring membership. So you always want to make sure that you're budgeting for, if you're the treasurer now, you always want to transition that information to the following treasurer that's coming after you to say, we need to have, for example, $2,000 in our bank account no matter what, because the insurance fee will always come. It's not like we can postpone the payment for insurance. It's something that the Heritage Center transmits to their insurance company. So that number you always want to forecast for and communicate to your incoming treasurer or the outgoing treasurer, just planning ahead. Any questions? I know there's some chapters who have bank accounts with their school, which could be either you look at it as a good thing or a bad thing. If you have it through a school, you have to jump through more hoops to get the money out. But if you have a bank account that is not managed by the school, one of these outflows items is bank fees. We've seen chapters actually lose money because they have a bank account where it charges them a monthly fee. So they're pretty much giving away between $5 and $10 of their chapter funds to the banks. So just if you're a chapter that manages their finances on their own, just make sure you're with a bank that doesn't charge monthly fees because you're just giving away your chapter funds. And then on this one, I'm going to cover the roster part. And this is where a lot of chapters also struggle with. So our roster, about 2 years ago, we switched to Chapter Spot. So that is the official place of where we keep track of our membership, everything from initiates to alumni. So if you're not using Chapter Spot, definitely recommend using that, especially for alumni connections, and should also be using that for reporting your initiates and pledges. And the two important dates is November 1st and March 1st. So November is about a month away, and that's when is the last day you could make membership adjustments to your roster. So this is important. If you're a treasurer, you have to make sure you're talking to your VP of membership to say that you have the right amount of funds transmitting for the correct amount of individuals. We had some instances where we had a brother paying their dues, but they were never on the roster. So they were never, even though they were submitting dues to the chapter, those funds were never actually being paid to Heritage Center to say the brother was a reported member. So just always verifying that your VP of membership is communicating with the VP of finance. So all of you already received your membership invoices. If your membership has changed, please go into your chapter spot and make those roster adjustments before November 1st. Because what will happen then, they'll start issuing credit memos where they will, instead of refunding you the funds, they'll just credit your account for the difference of those members. That whatever adjustments you made, be it they are no longer a brother or have graduated, or their membership status changed. So just make sure you make those adjustments. And lastly, because Chapter Spot is the place for communication and also alumni retention, just definitely encourage your brotherhood to complete their entire profile. So this is a snapshot we have of one chapter where there's a member, but the member is missing a phone number. So if you look down the road and you want to have a good alumni relationship list or contact list, if you don't manage one as a chapter, it's not going to be very useful because you won't be able to reach your brother or alumni brother if their profile wasn't completed in Chapter Spot. So just make sure as you add new members or as alumni transition to alumni status that they're updating their Chapter Spot profiles with the most current information. Vadim, do you want to do
Sure.
covering LOAs?
Yes. So with the same thought in mind as far as keeping your rosters up to date, one of the additional categories that you need to make sure you're keeping track of as part of keeping your membership as updated as possible is the LOA status, leave of absence status. So you have a couple of bullet points here in terms of valid reasons why someone would be blessed to be approved for, the reasons that you would be approved for. So studying abroad, military leave, working in a internship or a co-op, a medical emergency or extreme hardships are valid reasons that would be allowed to get approval for leave of absence. So in order to make sure you get appropriate approval all the way through the process, you have to make sure that the member submits a formal letter to the executive committee of the chapter. Has to be approved at that level. Once it's approved by the e-board there, then you need to send an email to the regional director and CC your CAs and SDs as a matter of getting the approval, which once you do, only then can you make your updates in Chapter Spot for that information. This needs to be done by November 1st if you want to get the credits that Nikolai was talking about. So if you want to be able to get credits, refunds on the fees that you may have already had to pay up front based on the invoice numbers that were originally reported, make sure you have all of this content updated by November 1st. Let me pause here and see if anyone has any questions on rosters and leave of absences.
Anyone on the call have experienced dealing with LOAs or roster adjustments, or any of you have particular questions to everyone in the room? Because we know if you have a question, that means everyone else might have a similar question. Oh, all good? Wow. Good for you guys.
Right, so moving on to audits and documentation. So audits are a little bit different on a per chapter basis because different chapters have different calendars. So the audits would have to be done on a different schedule depending on, I guess, when each chapter has held their elections. I started my position in the spring. There was a number of the chapters in our region, I'm sure that's the same case with any other region, where the treasurers were being elected around springtime. So for people who have just come into their role sometime over the course of spring or summertime, it would be their time frame to perform audits probably about right now. And of course, anyone who goes through the election process at the end of this semester or into January, February timeframe would have to deal with the audits around that timeframe. So obviously the audits would be performed by the incoming treasurer as per the schedule of being elected, as I just mentioned. It might be a good idea to create a committee of 4 or 5 members with accounting experience to perform this. Obviously, being a business fraternity, it shouldn't be too difficult to find some people with finance and accounting experience or people who are studying that. You can ask professionals or alumni to be part of your audit process. You definitely want to make sure that all your financial records are in order, and you go through the review of those records that you have in order to properly conduct the audit process. I guess one thing I should have mentioned at the start of this particular section, we do have a couple of links at the back of this presentation, both for a finance guide and an audit guide. So there will be a guide provided with some of the ideas on how to conduct this process. So going back to the review of the financial records would certainly be part of that exercise. You definitely want to check for anything that looks out of place for discrepancies and fraud as part of your process. You want to determine your chapter's financial standing, meaning that you want to make sure that anything that you have outstanding as far as payments that you have to pay, fees that you have to collect, that you do that as quickly as possible so that your financial standing is as update as possible. There's a couple of requirements here on the documentation side that you have to make sure your chapter goes through. You have to keep 3 to 5 years of a variety of these financial documents for income and expenses, and all of the audits and budgets. So budgets, as Nikolai already mentioned, have to be kept in chapter spot, and audits would have to be uploaded to the chapter spot as well. You have a couple of IRS designations here as well. So any donations to your chapter, being a 501c7 type of a designation, it means that they're not tax deductible. The donations are not tax deductible. The overall foundation, which is a different classification, is tax deductible. So just something for you to keep track of and be aware of. So let me pause here and see if there's any questions anybody has on this content. All right, Josh, I see your hand.
Guess I worked better than the button. Regarding the audits that the treasurers have to perform, again, is there a template or some sort of guide as to the kind of step-by-step process?
Yes, there's a link to a guide at the end of this presentation.
Okay, thanks.
So those documents were presented earlier in the summer. There was I guess, a big conference where these were presented. So these are documents that have already been created in the past. They are in my AKSI content available, so you will see the links. I know this is being recorded, but additionally, we will be looking to send out this particular set of slides with the links. And since the what you saw previously was a spreadsheet snapshot of the budget, we will have an attached spreadsheet of the actual budget also made available. Any additional questions? I got to scroll through the top to see if anybody else is putting their hands up. No, nobody else putting their hands up. Okay, I guess Nikolai, we can proceed.
Okay. So a little bit of interaction from all the attendees. If you want to just go around, so I have Andrew as my first person on my screen on the most left. So I'm just gonna go from left to right. Just gonna go through and see what you're doing as a chapter in terms of dealing with getting fundraising for your chapter, or how are you adjusting in terms of finance-wise, to being virtual, if your chapter is virtual, or what kind of things have you done differently because you're in virtual situation as a chapter related to fundraising and any kind of financial related issues that you might be running into.
Yeah, I can answer that. So luckily, heading into this situation, we were in a good financial situation as a chapter as a whole. So we were able to significantly lower dues for brothers, just to pretty much cover the portion that has to go to headquarters. So that was a good relief for many of our brothers, as it kind of kept them active and participated within the fraternity, as we are still we're a hybrid, so we're in person and online with classes. So many of us are around campus, so we can hold events and such, like in smaller groups. As far as fundraising goes, we're keeping with our traditional like restaurant fundraisers and stuff like that, things that we can still hold. Obviously, big group activities we can't do as much, but yeah, it's trying to do as much as we can virtually and in a safe manner.
Awesome, thank you. I think I have, is it Andre next?
Yeah, that's me.
Welcome.
I guess I could go now. Are you hearing me clearly?
Yes, sir.
Yes.
Okay. For our chapter, we are fully virtual. This semester, our university is fully virtual, so of course there's no in-person fundraising. Over the years, we've been successful, more successful at in-person fundraising. So that's like majority of where our fundraising efforts come from. So that kind of puts like a damp in our ability to fundraise. So now we have to start thinking or relying more like virtual fundraising, which hasn't been that successful. So what we do benefit from is like alumni donation. So we have a monthly thing that we call it like a 1904 pledge, where every month we kind of like ask alumni to donate, $19.04 just to give back to the chapter. So that's kind of like what we are relying on heavily for this semester. And also for dues, of course, we lowered dues just to be able to cover, what's required to send to nationals. But we also try to have a little bit above that to be able to have some fees just in case we are unable to, do any form of fundraising that's adequate to support our chapter.
Great. So are you planning to do a virtual fundraising event as a chapter or no?
Yeah, we are doing virtual fundraising. We started one where we work with more like a food distribution company, like online delivery. So members or alumni would just order snacks like popcorns and chocolates and stuff online, and then that company would give us like half of our profits from sales. So that's like something that we started. And we are also looking into corporate sponsorship. So different companies are looking to, partner with our chapter to host information sessions or some form of virtual event. We could also benefit from that as well. So those are like two key things that we're working on.
Perfect. Thank you.
No problem.
Rob, do you, how your chapter adjusting financially and in terms of fundraising, how's things going there?
I can't speak on specifics of like the financial status because I don't do that. I do recruitment. I'm just here for the treasurer, but I can tell you a bit about what us as an executive board have been planning with the fundraising. Since we are at home and online, we've kind of run into that wall a little. We're trying to change things a little. So we thought about doing a virtual raffle ticket night, kind of make that kind of work. So, like a 50-50 except online. We're starting to plan we have a big fundraiser in the spring, which generally brings in most of our fundraising money. It's a big softball tournament. We're looking into ways to like move that online, how we can do that effectively. But that's kind of what I have off the top of my head, but it's definitely been a struggle going completely from online.
Oh yeah, work and school has been quite the adjustment, being in a digital environment. We have, sorry if I'm going to mispronounce the name, Hneses, is that how?
Yeah, it's Hennessy's actually.
Okay, sorry.
um, okay, so I'm just a member at my first time. But what I've have seen that we were fundraising, we were thinking about starting like a virtual babysitting fundraiser where we get to go around and babysit other people's kids virtually, like kind of like tutoring, like helping them with their homework or just helping them with any type of schoolwork they have. And we're working on other stuff. We're thinking about doing other things, but yeah.
Okay. So the slides I have up now, that hopefully will help transition how you would normally do an event in person and what the alternative for a virtual situation might be. I think I have a Brian and Ryan left. Do you two want to chime in and share some of your chapter plans and how you're dealing financially and also any virtual fundraising ideas?
Yeah, so my university is actually mostly in person. We're kind of doing like a hybrid in-person virtual model, and the university itself have been doing a pretty good job. Our cases have been they started at 14 and now they're below 3. I think we only have 3, so university's been doing a really good job. So being in person, we have access to a few more opportunities. We did for on campus, we did a pie asai event last year that actually did like really well, where it was just like you come in and you take some whipped cream and you pie your buddies and whatnot for $1 or so. And so we're looking to maybe hopefully do something like that again, because that actually did a lot better than we expected it to. Didn't know that so many of our brothers got so much rage from their friends that they just want to pie them all. But a more professional and very cool opportunity that has come across, our dean actually reached out from the business school about partnering with a local bank who I'm not sure the details yet. This is like literally just came to me this week, but they're interested in training students to teach like financial classes or something like that. Like I said, I don't know many of the details yet, but the dean wanted Alpha Kappa to do it because I have a very good relationship with her. And so that'll be really cool when we're going to do it and to teach us and then to teach the classes in the spring to other students. So there's a possible like a large sum of money coming in for that. So that's a very cool and unique opportunity that, I kind of took over. I'm here because I'm the president and we didn't really have anyone to be the fundraising chair this semester. So I kind of took responsibility over. So I appreciate everyone sharing some of their ideas, and that was an exciting opportunity that came across for us. So yeah, just, and like everybody else said, just been able to lower dues. We're looking pretty good right now, and especially with us being in person and maintaining social distancing, everything like that, we definitely have a lot more opportunities than some other universities that are only online.
If you don't mind me asking, how did that whole conversation with the bank come about that particular approach to teaching people Finance 101, if that's what it's about?
Like I said, I don't really know all the details. The dean and I just know each other very well, and she knows that I was the president of the chapter here, and she's always wanted to get AK Psi more involved in the business school. So she said that the bank just reached out and they're interested in students, and her idea was that it would be a student organization, student run organization. So her thought was to pass it off to AK Psi. So hopefully we can get hopefully it comes to fruition and we'll be able to do something like that. Again, I'm not quite sure the detail exactly it entails. She gave me a very brief rundown in the hallway the other day. But I'm looking forward to that opportunity. And, she even said that, there'd be a large stipend from the university if we went through with it. So I'm excited for that opportunity for sure.
Good for you guys. Good luck.
Thank you.
And I think we're getting on the time, but Ryan, do you want to share some of your chapter experiences?
Yeah, sure. So we've been doing pretty well, like everyone else said. We got to lower dues for all our brothers. We have our Chipotle fundraiser and our Panera fundraiser, and I believe there's one more restaurant that I'm missing off the top of my head, but we still have a lot of things planned in the works. And also there's like 2 corporate partnership events that we have in the works that'll do pretty well too. So overall, just in a good spot. Yeah, that's kind of it.
So your chapter is also mostly in person then?
Ours is kind of a mix. Like we have had some in-person events, but like very minimal, like one or two so far. Because like the cases are so low. I'm in Binghamton. There have been like only a few cases here, and most of us are off campus anyway. So we're all like kind of a little. We're fine with some in person, but generally mostly online.
Great.
Hey, Ryan, sorry. Ryan, can you elaborate a little bit on what you actually do with those restaurants?
Yeah, sure. So actually tonight I had a Scholars Chipotle fundraiser. So we reach out to them and Scholars is separate from AKSI first of all, but like for Scholars we reach out and Chipotle would go like, yeah, from 5 to 9, if you give a promo code to all of your members and all of their members' friends, we'll give whatever 25% profits. I don't know the exact number off the top of my head, but usually we raise, and I know from Scholars personally, I do that. Like I've been in that longer than I have been in AKSI. We usually raise over $500 per event, depending on the amount of people that come. So it's kind of a very good event. I think Panera is less profitable than Chipotle, for sure.
Excellent. Thank you for sharing.
So that's a great thing to note for fundraising. With the room being mixed, it seems like some are fully virtual, some are partially, and then some colleges are still all full on campus. So if we look at the fundraising slide, the last column, it definitely pulls in a lot of alumni relations. So if your alumni relations is not as strong, try to beef that up as a chapter and reach out to your connections, even if they're graduated a year or 2 ago. This is where the alumni really come in handy. And going to the idea of doing bake sales or food related eating fundraising events, there's a couple options out there that you can search online where you could partner up as a chapter, for example, selling cookies, and you as a chapter get a portion of doing those sales digitally. They just have to use your chapter promo code. So there's definitely options out there to still fundraise virtually as a chapter, and especially if your chapter is big and we're coming up onto the holiday season. So members will be with their families, and if you do have an online option to sell your items, then that's one way to bring in extra funds to your chapter. Okay. And I think the last few slides are appendix and links. So I don't know if Vadim, we kind of already went through this one, right?
Yeah, we kind of did cover it. So if there weren't really any questions about the budgeting template, we will attach a spreadsheet version of this. So this is, again, a modified version from the standard one where under the expenses, the first line there is 54 instead of 60. And then 4 lines down, insurance, instead of 30, it's 27. So those are the 2 modifications there. Then for the spring budgets, I changed anything that said 350 to 250. Actually, sorry, the convention savings plan, I changed it to 250. So obviously every fall with the $30, the expenses are currently listed as 280. The other ones is 250 because those are the surety bonds is once a year and the fall semester. So just keep that in mind. This is a generic base template. So you can enhance it as much as you want to, but we'll attach this as a spreadsheet in the email. And on the next slide, we have a couple of links. Josh, this is one of the things you asked about. So we have an audit manual here. We have a financial manual as well. So this is the financial manual is the one that has the numbers that are not modified. So don't be alarmed if you look at that particular manual and the numbers look different than what it is for this semester. Those are the standard numbers. I guess we'll have to wait and see what happens at the end of this semester, if anything stays or remains the same or goes back to the numbers as they were before. So for the moment, this is what we do have. There's an operational virtual plan that was sent out sometime in August, and this is the link to that. So obviously, in order for you guys to connect to these links, you have to have a valid MyAKSci account. I think operations plan doesn't ask you for authentication. Financial manual and audit manual does. So you have to have an account. And that's our presentation. So we'll make sure that, well, we got a couple of more things. Go ahead.
That's just, that's the end. So there, we posted links in the chat. So if you do want to click on them and check those out. And I think any other questions that we can all answer for you as members or as other chapters representatives?
Thank you, Nikolai. Vadim, excellent presentation. And as Nikolai just mentioned, if there are any additional questions that here's the opportunity to ask. If not, I guess we
I don't
can
have any
wrap.
questions. I just like to say thank you.
Good.
I was just going to say thank you. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to interrupt. I don't have
No
any questions.
problem.
It's our pleasure.
Thank you,
Thank you
everyone.
again for taking the time.
Thank you.
Take care, everyone. Best of luck.
Good night,
Stay
everybody.
safe.
Yeah.
We're good?